Hey everyone, Anthony Venuti here with In Touch Mortgage Solutions. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe out there. Want to do this video today on talking about the real estate and the mortgage marketplace and what's happened since our last video. Stay tuned. All right, so basically in the headlines, we're seeing a lot of things that are geared obviously towards the housing market. There's a lot of conversation, there has been for the last couple of months regarding housing, the mortgage marketplace. It's like center news in almost every single headline and every single newspaper you read, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook, it's all over. So April's data has come in, and they're basically saying that year to year, for the month of March, where are we in regards to the sales, right? We're down 13%, 13,633 sales for the month of March. And, it's a lot of stuff that is important to understand where the market's going, but it's really too early, I think, to really be able to gauge if the market is turning, right? That is basically my takeaway, because in our industry, so for example, I can talk from experience, like the mortgage industry is a little bit different. We see the pipeline and we look at deals once they're funded versus, let's say, the real estate market that may look at it when it's sold. The real estate market, you look at things as months of inventory. You look at sales data, you look at price data. There's a lot of data. Now, I'm not a real estate agent. I'm pretty sure on most of your Instagram feeds, if you're following the real estate market, you're going to get several updates about what's happening and what homes are selling for between detached and semis and towns and condos. The one thing that I can say that may be driving some of the changes that we are going to see are, one thing, tapped out buyers are, when you look at the data over the last few months, the amount of volume that's gone through the system has been astronomical, record breaking. That's a lot of transactions, right? Generally, in a good or normal year, you're going to see a slow progression into the summer months. Your June, your May, June, July, August. Things start to taper off around returning back to school. Most people want to be in their homes when the summer, but obviously the last year and a bit right now have changed buyers' sentiment, logic in some regards to how employment is going to affect our wants and needs, employment in general. There's a lot of changes. So it's hard to look at for my opinion, it's hard to say, hey, this year's like this year because of these things. These last 2 years have been astronomically different. To put it into perspective, I mean, I don't need to tell you. We all know what we've gone through from 2020 into 2021. So when you look at the influx or the demand for people to drive outside of the urban centers like Toronto, and we see that price growth happening out in the outskirts, that's because people are driving for more space. They're realizing potentially that if these lockdown measures are going to continue, and until we get to a certain period of inoculation, then what's going to happen, and where am I going to be? Where do I want to be? Do I need the space? Like, I have a lot of clients that call me and say, Anthony, I'm with my significant other and we're in 600 square feet in lockdown. It's not happening. So we need to make that move. So what are driving these people to make these moves? And are we tapped out? Is everyone that, that we've had seen have we seen the tail end of it? That's what I'm thinking. I don't think so, because keep in mind, we have limited immigration into Canada right now. We have very little actual immigration. When that happens, generally a lot of these people tend to flock to the urban centers, right? Or maybe they'll flock to different areas. But when we see this data, sales down year over year, okay, that's fine, because obviously when you look at the data from last year, even from last month, hey, I don't think it's a good indicator of where the market's going. It's just telling you, hey, last month wasn't as busy as it was the month before, which is fine, right? I mean, you can agree or disagree with me on that, but it's too soon to tell because you can't correlate it back to any other data. And February was a crazy month. That was almost like early mid peak of this entire housing frenzy, right? That's literally when it started to come into major focus for a lot of people. And the changes, right? So what's changing, right? What are the things that are driving potentially this downswing, or that could drive another upswing? So stress test rules coming into play June 1st, 2021. We're going to see some changes happening to the stress test rules. So let's get on the same page for those of you that may are watching this and not sure what's happening. June 2021, June 1st, the changes are going to be to the qualifying rate. So the best way for me to draw this out for you is as of right now, if you're planning to purchase a property or you're refinancing or restructuring, anytime you're getting out your mortgage, except for renewals, you need to undergo a stress test. The stress test being 4.79%. Effective, and that is for any insured, 20% down, conventional, any mortgage. So effective June 1st, that's changing. Anybody that's buying a home with more than 20% down, who doesn't require the mortgage default insurance through CMHC, General, through Canada Guarantee, you will be qualifying at a higher rate of 5.25%. That's a 46 basis point difference between the current qualifying rate of 4.79%. And that distinction, so if you're buying with less than 20% down and you need mortgage default insurance, guess what? Nothing changes to the qualifying rate. You stay the same at 4.79 status quo. Buying with more than 20% down, that is the demographic that's going to feel that extra, 4.5% decrease in purchasing power. But I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, how the lenders are going to respond to this, as they are already responding with a little bit more, maybe a little bit more flexibility, because generally anything insured has to fit the box. If it's outside the box, it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't work. If you're buying with more 20% or significantly more down, then there's a little bit of play in those numbers when we look at providing you with a mortgage. There's lenders that are going to look at things differently. In our industry, as a mortgage broker, we work with 30 plus lenders, each one of them generally having similar or close to each other's guidelines, but it's all about their appetite. So these changes, I think, can be a driving factor. Price point, right? Because if you're buying insured, remember the limit is $1 million. You cannot surpass $1 million. Even with the changes coming, which came May 3rd for the first-time homebuyer incentive, which I'll get into, or I will talk about them. These changes could be pushing people to hold off a minute. Okay, so stress test rule changes. Maybe there's some people waiting on the sidelines because they think that this 1% vacancy tax coming in next January is going to bring more inventory to the market, right? That's a possibility, right? Because what this announcement through the budget, and Christina Freeland, basically the Minister of Finance, said, we want to, and even Tiff Macklem from the Bank of Canada have come out and said, we want to see, this drive people that have empty homes, put them on the market. However, I need to ask one question, and I put this in my notes here to sort of say, how many people actually, or foreign owners of homes, how many of them are actually sitting vacant? How many of them are inhabitable? And is that 1% going to really sway them to put their home back on the market or rent it out? Right? Because let's do a simple look at it and say, let's say home price growth is 8 to 9%, 10%. We've seen some crazy amounts, 16, 13, 14% increases in home values. What's 1%? What's that 1% going to be? That's like, if you have a mutual fund, that's like literally the fees, less than the fees for some mutual funds. So is it going to make a change? Then you have the first-time homebuyers incentive plan, right? So that came into effect May 3rd. Maybe people were waiting for this plan to come out because it can help them. Yes, obviously the first-time homebuyer incentive plan, with the changes from the previous one, right? So now they're basically talking about a maximum income qualification of $150,000, a 4.5 times increase rather than 4 times. I mean, it can give you, I think, a $650,000 maximum mortgage. If you make $150,000 a year, the government will help you by giving you, so you'd have to come up with the 5%, right? And then if you come up with the 5%, the government will match your 5%. If it's new construction, if you have 5%, the government will help you with a 10% down. But it is like I call it like a second mortgage, right? Because basically you have the Bank of Canada, the government, I should say, in your back pocket, registered right behind, where you share in the wins and you share in the losses. But this program only applies to the major centers, your Toronto and your Vancouver areas, right? So if you're looking for more information, we'll have some of that up on our website very shortly about some of the changes to the first-time home buyers incentive, as well as the stress test rule. There's a lot of information. What we're actually trying to get as our clients to do is because we're talking about the stress test changes and the first-time home buyer incentives. If you follow me on Instagram, in my bio, so it's a underscore Venuto at just a underscore Venuto. I don't know why I was going to put the at as in my email. But you can definitely go on to follow us on Instagram and download the app. It's free, and you can play around with the different scenarios, refinance calculators, many other things. But I digress. So we talked about the stress test. We talked about the 1% tax, first-time home buyer incentive. We talked briefly, about the what I want to talk about was the Bank of Canada basically coming out with a different message also, right? So the new message, as opposed to what was happening last year, was the changes to when they think they're going to be increasing the policy rate. So earlier on last year, Tiff Macklem came out and says, Canadians, if you're looking to buy or make a major purchase, please feel confident. Canada is going to help you. We're here. We're not making any changes until the economy and the recovery is well on their way. 2.5 weeks ago now, the Tiff Macklem, the governor of the Bank of Canada, came out basically indicating or signaling that there might be a potential to increase the monetary or the policy rate earlier into 2022, second half of 2022. However, there could be some things that are there that I see that I don't necessarily, when you look, you have to read between the lines, right? So this is like typical Bank of Canada stuff. If you're following along and they say follow the bouncing ball, he still reiterated many different reservations in regards to what it's going to take. So although there's certain parts of the economy that are operating and functioning better, there's still a lot of other areas that are not. And the function of the Bank of Canada, as I said in my previous video, is not to control the housing market. So that's why they sort of welcomed OSFIs, the regulatory bodies for the financial institutions, to make the change to the stress test rule, so that I think Bank of Canada did not have to make the heavy lifting to make any haste decisions to change anything. With that being said as well, you read and you basically read and you listen to what he had to say, and he's saying, we still need to see the recovery on the way. We need to still address the unemployment issue, and we need to maintain inflation at 2%. And when we start to see those things come into check, I think that's when the Bank of Canada will feel more comfortable to make the change. But we are going to see some transitory inflation increase in the next few months, right? It's built into the data. It's in the modeling. It's going to happen when we reopen. We see in the States it's reopening, and we're seeing people out there. There was supply chain issues that happened over the years, over the last few months and in last year. So businesses are trying to get back on track. So there's going to be some maybe short-term inflation, which maybe the government's going to, the Bank of Canada may let the economy run hot for a little while. We don't know, but making those decisions will have serious ramifications that we felt right across Canada. So, and I'm going to put that against what the U.S. said just for a brief moment, because Jerome Powell came out and basically said, because Tiff Macklem, the governor of the Bank of Canada, criticized Jerome Powell, which is the central banker for the U.S. Federal, he's the chair of the Federal Reserve, most influential guy in the world right now, basically saying, I'm criticizing him because he didn't pull back on spending. Because the Bank of Canada has pulled back on the government bond buyback program, buying up government debt at the tune of $4 billion a week. Now they've reduced it to $3 billion a week. The U.S. is still holding steady at $120 million a month. Basically, they're just pumping money. They're just printing and pumping money. I digress from that. As I said, I'm not an economist. I'm not looking at that data, but it does play into a lot of things. The Bank of Canada has many different tools in their belt, like yield control, quantitative easing, they just don't want to deploy yet. And I was saying about the US is that Jerome Powell said it's not even time to have a conversation about raising interest rates right now. We will let you know when that's time. And that means that if Canada was to do it before the US, well, how would that? The question is, how would those changes impact the Canadian economy? So those are some of the reasons why we could be seeing a slow in it, because maybe all this data is flowing in, and people are starting to maybe see that, hey, is now a good time to buy? Is now not a good time to buy? Like, one more thing that could be changing the dynamics of the entire industry right now is the news around blind bidding. And I think blind bidding is something that, like, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the program, because I think there's pros and cons for both sides. You let me know. Tell me in the comment section, do you think we should get rid of blind bidding? Do you think we should go back to the way it was in the 80s where you're able to see the offers? Because here's my position. If you're competing, let's say you're a first-time home buyer and you're trying to get into the market, we tell our clients, go in with the best offer you possibly can, knowing the price and the comps by your professional that's giving you that data to say, hey, I know you have to go in firm. I know you're removing a lot of conditions, but here's the data. Let's make a decision, okay? And obviously, there's another problem, is that there's no conditions, there's no home inspection generally. Is that going to change? But I digress back to blind bidding. So now you're going in with the best offer. You don't know if you're going to win or lose, because you're going in with top dollar, your maximum amount, or at least you should be. All we can do is have an honest and open discussion about what we see, how things, and what we hear from our clients saying, I want to do this because of this, and I want to do that because of this, right? And we're not here to sit there and say, hey, you need to, because we're not forcing or pushing anybody, right? All we do is we give you financing advice. But when it comes to like this blind bidding stuff, there's a lot of mixed emotions. Whether you're talking to real estate professionals, you're talking to clients, and I really want to know, comment, please talk. Let's have a conversation about it. I'll respond to all the comments or the private messages about blind bidding. So, we talked about some things that are there. There's probably a couple other things that we're probably missing, but we're running out of time. I'm running this thing pretty long, and I just really want to thank everyone who watched our last video and we got us, to where we are now, and all our clients that listen and comment and appreciate the advice that we're giving to them. So always remember, if you found this video helpful, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that when I post a video, you'll get notified, and you can, basically get a little bit more information or just having an open discussion about what is happening. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.